It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of Thanksgiving weekend 1992, November 27th, or in this case, November 25th. And, well, there's actually three movies that came out this weekend wide, but we already looked at one of them a couple weeks ago, and that was Aladdin, which we opened in limited release 2 weeks ago, and then opened wide this weekend, so nothing more to say about that one, but we'll look at the two other big new releases that came out this weekend. Two notable movies. Let's start with the biggest new release that came out this weekend, and that was Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston making her feature film debut in The Bodyguard.
Frank Farmer to see Miss Marin.
What?
Alexander Graham Bell to see Miss Marin.
All right.
Bill said he used to be with the Secret Service.
That was 2 years with Carter, 4 with Reagan.
Reagan got shot.
Not on my ship. Hi.
You don't look like a bodyguard.
This is my disguise.
Well, his timing's good.
Henry, I've spent a lot of time guarding people all over the world, and I found one thing to be true. No matter how incompetent the assassins, no matter how much they miss their target, there's one person who always gets hit.
Who?
The cocky black chauffeur.
You afraid I might get picked off in my snazzy running suit?
No, I'm afraid that I'm gonna have to jog with you.
Someone was in my house? Wait a minute, someone was in my house?
Everybody's afraid of something. That's how we know we care about things. When we're afraid we'll lose it.
How about you, Frank Farmer, out there on the edge?
Rachel, I don't want to get confused about what I'm doing here.
I'm not confused.
You pay me to protect you. That's what I do.
Then what is it?
I'm afraid of not being there.
So I haven't really talked about it here on the channel, and I've talked about it on the website a couple of times, but not really. But when it comes to Whitney Houston, I'm a big fan of her music. I mean, I really am. Like, it's hard not to really love her music with that voice that she has. I mean, like, I consider her to be one of the greatest singers ever. Like every once in a while, when I'm doing my research for these videos and for the website, I'll just put on some Whitney Houston music and start singing along, because their songs are so catchy, and like I said, her singing voice is so good. Like, it's really amazing. So when I heard that she died about 10 years ago, I had never seen this movie before, so I wanted to see this movie for the first time, and I finally saw it, and really, how do I put this? There's a way to put this movie. You ever see those movies where they have a great soundtrack, but the movie is not really all that good? Like, maybe the best example of a recent movie that did that was The Greatest Showman, which is not a very good movie script-wise, but the songs in that movie are so damn good. Like, that soundtrack is amazing, and I guess some people could say the original Space Jam was the same thing too. The movie is like, Space Jam is a guilty pleasure movie for me, but most people didn't like it. But at the same time, that soundtrack was so good that soundtrack became one of the biggest soundtracks of all time, the biggest selling soundtracks of all time. And then you have a movie like The Bodyguard, which is very much like those movies that I just talked about. The movie itself is it's not very good, but that soundtrack for this movie is amazing. Of course, you have Whitney Houston singing some classic songs on there, like I Have Nothing and Run to You, and of course the big song from the movie, the cover of I Will Always Love You, which I didn't even know was actually a cover of a Dolly Parton song back in the day, but I found that out recently. But when I watched the movie for the first time, I was actually pretty disappointed by it. And I was disappointed by it not because of the performances themselves. I think Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston are very good in the movie. I think they got too much panning by a lot of people when the movie came out. They're not bad. They're not bad in this movie. They really are working off each other very well, and you can see the chemistry there. But the biggest problem I think the movie has is the overall script. The script is is, in a way, I think the script doesn't really know what kind of direction it wants to go, what kind of a story it wants to tell, what kind of a twist it wants to tell. Because really, this movie, I don't even think this movie even knows what was supposed to happen at the end. Because because the first part of this movie, you see this guy that you're supposed to think is the guy that's trying to kill this singer, and it turns out it's actually not him. And they spend a good majority of the movie showing this guy, and then at the end of the movie, for no reason, they just throw in a random other person to be the bad guy, and it's just like, really? Like, why did you set it up for that then? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like the script has a lot of plot holes to it. The tone is really all over the place. But like I said, the movie itself, it's not a good movie, but I do like it. I like it because of Costner and Houston. I think they're both very good in here. I mean, Whitney Houston herself, she does prove that she has acting chops in here. I mean, she did a couple of other movies in the 90s, Waiting to Exhale, Preacher's Wife. The last movie she did before her passing was Sparkle. She was one of the few things I actually liked about that movie, but we'll eventually get to those movies later on. But she did show that she had a potential to be a really good actress, and she really showed it in the movies that she picked. I mean, she didn't pick really bad movies. Like, even when she still gave it her all. And yeah, this movie works mostly because of the two of them. Like, you could definitely believe Costner wanted to make this role work, and it shows on screen. The funny thing is, this is a script that's been around since the 1970s. I think the Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote this movie, wrote it for Steve McQueen and Diana Ross, which I think would have been interesting. But Steve McQueen, I think, died in late 70s, early 80s, I think. I'd have to look into that, but I think it was around then. Still would have been very interesting to see. I actually saw that Kevin Costner also was going to do a sequel with, of all people, Princess Diana. And then once she said yes to the script, I think a couple weeks later she passed away, and then that script went nowhere. And that would have been very weird to see how that would work as a sequel. It would have been interesting to see if Princess Diana could actually act, but at the same time, yeah, it would have been very weird to do. Like, I think the movie mostly works because of Houston and Costner. I think it's the reason why I keep going back to this movie, because they are the two things that carry the movie, and the soundtrack as well. The story itself is not exciting. The mystery is all over the place. It really doesn't know which direction it wants to go. I feel like this movie was kind of rushed into production to cash in on Whitney Houston's success at the time. And yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it's not a good movie, but it is one that I go back to every once in a while, mostly because of the soundtrack, mostly because of Whitney Houston, and mostly because of Kevin Costner. Not a great movie by any means, but for someone like me who really likes her music and wants to see her acting in this, like, it's fine for what it is. Like, it could have been a whole lot better script-wise, but as a whole, it's fine for what it is. I actually saw they're going to try to remake this movie, but I'm curious to see how they would do it. Like, maybe, like, I would figure maybe the Whitney Houston role would be someone like Beyonce, or I don't know, Rihanna maybe, or someone like that. I mean, I don't know who you would get for the Costner role. That's kind of an interesting thing to think about, honestly, but I'm not going to do that right now because I've already gone too long on this. So, yeah, The Bodyguard it's an okay movie. Could have been a whole lot better, but it works mostly because of Costner, Houston, and the soundtrack. So, that's The Bodyguard. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Neil Jordan's The Crying Game.
Take up my wallet. I want you to do something for me.
I want you to find her out. Tell her I was thinking of her.
Listen, there's something I should tell you.
Shouldn't I go?
Yes.
Vincent Canby of the New York Times calls The Crying Game ingenious and exceptionally well acted.
You vanished quite effectively.
You know her, Jimmy.
Jimmy, is it?
Leave her out of this.
Are you going to tell me what's wrong?
No, not here. the way you expected.
So the interesting thing about The Crying Game is that when it came out at just the right time. Because remember, this is 1992. We didn't have the internet. Twitter didn't even exist. Social media didn't exist. And this movie was heavily promoted by telling people not to spoil the big secret in this movie, which of course is the fact that Jay Davidson's character, who in the trailers and all that is seen as a woman, but it turns out she's actually a guy, and that's one of the. And at the time, a lot of people tried to avoid revealing the big twists, but of course it didn't help that the Academy Awards kind of spoiled it when they said Best Supporting Actor Jay Davidson. I mean, that pretty much spoils the twist right there. Also, David Letterman had spoiled it too. I think on the when he did Late Night, but yeah, the movie definitely came out at the right time, because I feel like a movie like this, once this movie would have gotten shown to a festival, the spoiler would have already been out there already, and they would have ruined the surprise of the film. But yeah, but The Crying Game overall it's not only is that twist great, by the way, the movie itself overall is really great. It does everything that I think The Bodyguard wanted to do in terms of the mystery aspect of that they were going for, but this movie does it a whole lot better. This thriller aspect that they have all throughout the course of the film, it keeps you invested. It's very tension filled. It's very interesting to see what happens. You're so invested in how this is going to end, and it just gets you right from the get-go and just keeps going and going and going. The acting overall is great in here. Stephen Ray is great in this. Jay Davidson. You see a young Forrest Whitaker in here. Neil Jordan directed this movie. He also won an Academy Award for writing the script. Was also nominated for Best Picture and Editing. And it's really a terrific, terrific film all around. It's a wonderfully made film. It's a movie that just keeps you on the edge of your seat all throughout the course of the film. And you're just wondering where is this all going to go out to in the end? Like, how's this going to pan out? And when it does, it sticks the landing really well. It's a well-made mystery. It's a fantastic film overall. Great film all around. Visually stunning. A great twist. Great cast overall. What more can I say about The Crying Game? It's just such a great movie. I really don't need to say anything else about it. If you haven't seen The Crying Game, I probably spoiled it for you, but come on, it's been 30 years, man. You should have had an idea of what it is by now. But if you haven't seen it and you still want to see, if you haven't seen it, I'd say definitely see it, because you're missing out on a terrific, terrific film. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll jump into the last month of '92, December, with two movies, including Eddie Murphy in the political comedy The Distinguished Gentleman, from the director of My Cousin Vinny, and also High Strung, starring Steve Oedekerk from Kung Pao Into the Fist, and one of the people who wrote Jimmy Neutron, and Jim Carrey in one of his earliest film roles. We'll take a look at both of those movies next time, but until then, thank you very much for watching, and thank you for checking out these videos. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.